Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on. Come on.
So I got to tell you, it was a classy move by the folks over at Saturday Night Live, and an even more classy move by Dan Crenshaw. And I want to draw people's attention to one very important thing. Dan Crenshaw did not give in to the desire to get some attention by manufacturing some outrage in this situation. He played it cool. He was a normal human being about the situation that did not feel the need to soapbox unnecessarily and to say that something was the end of the world. He had every right to be outraged and angry, but he kind of took the high road, and he has been reaping the benefit of it. Like I said, a classy move by Saturday Night Live and a classier move by Dan Crenshaw. The congressman-elect appeared alongside Pete Davidson on the Weekend Update segment this past week just gone by. Pete Davidson apologized to Lieutenant Commander Dan Crenshaw on SNL this weekend. Crenshaw, in case you missed it, is a former Navy SEAL who wears an eye patch after losing his eye in Afghanistan in 2012. Last week, Pete said that he looks like a hitman in a porn movie, and he flippantly blew off his military service and the fact that he lost his eye in defense of our country and our freedom. How this one got by, we're not entirely sure. But Crenshaw took the high road. And now he's sort of reaping the benefit as his star rises because he provided an excellent example of how one can go through the world without screaming and yelling, ranting and raving and swearing that anybody who believes something vaguely different than you is an evil a-hole that hates America and wants to see it burn. Like I said, not only did Pete apologize during Weekend Update, but Crenshaw was there to accept. And he took some shots at Pete, too. All, of course, I'm guessing, written by the folks over at SNL. His cell phone ringer went off, and it was the Ariana Grande song, Breathin'. And he cracked on Pete's looks, too. Let's have a listen, because I can talk about it, but it's better to listen to it. And if you saw it, well, it's good to relive it.
I mean this from the bottom of my heart. It was a poor choice of words. The man is a war hero, and he deserves all the respect in the world. And I'm sorry.
Thank you, Pete. I appreciate you saying that.
So we good?
We're good. Apology accepted.
Just keep breathing.
It sounds like my phone's ringing.
You gonna answer that?
No, and I was just going to let it ring, because that's rude to answer it. Let's just let it go to voicemail.
No, it's cool. It's cool, man. Yeah.
But, oh, do you know her?
All right, so that's funny. All right. So last week, I made a joke about a picture of you, and I feel like it would only be fair if you got me back and made fun of a picture of me. Does that sound okay?
I don't really need to do that.
No, come on. I deserve it.
All right, I'll do
Please?
one.
All right.
And now, first impressions with Lieutenant Commander Dan Crenshaw.
Thanks, Colin. This is Pete Davidson. He looks like if the meth from Breaking Bad was a person.
All right. Not bad. So there, we're even. All right.
Hold on, one more. This is.
All right.
He looks like a troll doll with a tapeworm.
Yeah, man. All right, that's good. We should wrap this up.
Oh, hold on. No, this is fun. This is fun.
Cool.
He looks like Martin Short in the Santa Claus 3. By the way, one of these people was actually good on SNL.
So that was funny, and Crenshaw proved that he has solid comedic timing. But the real value, I think, came next. The real value and the closest thing to anything vaguely productive that I've seen happen in any area of the media happened next. Crenshaw ended the bit on a more serious note. A note that focused on what we talk about on this show an awful lot. Crenshaw ended the bit by focusing on unity and focusing on forgiveness. Asking Americans to break down the veteran-civilian divide this weekend and connect with a veteran by telling them never forget. He mentioned those who died on September 11th, 2001, like Pete's father. Again, I could talk about it, but let's take a listen because it's good stuff. And if you enjoyed it over the weekend, enjoy it again, but really think and feel and take in what a moment like this means.
There's a lot of lessons to learn here. Not just that the left and right can still agree on some things, but also this: Americans can forgive one another. We can remember what brings us together as a country and still see the good in each other. This is Veterans Day weekend, which means that it's a good time for every American to connect with a veteran. Maybe say thanks for your service, but I would actually encourage you to say something else. Tell a veteran, never forget. When you say never forget to a veteran, you are implying that as an American, you are in it with them. Not separated by some imaginary barrier between civilians and veterans, but connected together as grateful fellow Americans who will never forget the sacrifices made by veterans past and present, and never forget those we lost on 9/11, heroes like Pete's father. So I'll just say, Pete, never forget.
Never forget. And that is from both of us.
In case you're not one of the people listening on KPRC 950 AM, Houston's more stimulating talk radio, Crenshaw won his election last Tuesday. He's a Republican, and he'll represent Texas's 2nd congressional district at the U.S. House. And look, like I said, there's a lot to take from this. There's a lot to take from this, not least of which is the fact that Crenshaw, like I said, seems to have very solid comedic timing. Good for him. It was absolutely beautifully done. Crenshaw said this morning on the Today Show that he wasn't initially certain whether or not he was going to do Saturday Night Live. And he said, we decided to do it because what better platform than to sort of give a united message for the country. Lots of people are going to be watching. A lot of people saw what happened last week. A lot of people were appalled by it. A lot of people were outraged. A lot of people were angry. A lot of people were cursing the liberal media and talking about how Pete Davidson and the rest of Saturday Night Live wanted to watch America burn. Those pinko commie comedians and satirists, they're the real danger. They're the real enemy. They're the real representation and embodiment of fake news. And you know what? After what Pete Davidson said, it's pretty easy to understand how people went to that. Pretty easy to understand how people went to that extreme. But I commend, as we should all, commend Dan Crenshaw for how he handled the whole situation. He didn't fly off the handle. He talked about it being unfair or not right. But he was the cooler head. He was the cooler head that prevailed in this situation. He did not do all the screaming and yelling. And what I want people to take away from this, besides everything that he said, all the pearls of wisdom that he said, was look how he won. Look how he won the day. Look how he won our hearts and minds by being the cooler head that prevailed. Whether you're a big supporter of Trump or whether you're a big supporter of the anti-Trump Avenatti or someone who is equally as brutish with how they go through the world. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. I mean that in a knockdown, drag out, take no prisoners sort of way. I want people to observe how in the space of the week, Dan Crenshaw went from being a guy that a lot of people had never heard of before to being a name on everybody's lips who had won the respect and admiration of people on the left and people on the right. A man who had gotten behind the velvet rope at Saturday Night Live. A man who had ingratiated himself with the enemy. A man who now has a tremendous platform with which to further his message, which, best we can tell so far, is a pretty good message. So I want all of us to see and observe how a man kept his cool, was the cooler head that prevailed, and won the day by not giving in to hate, fear, and anger.
You walk these streets most every day. You waiting to get washed away.